Hello there, you Scrub Lords, and welcome to another episode of Scrub Chats. This is your host, Many Miles Away, and today we're going to be discussing a few, I guess you could say, topics that have come up recently that I think have demanded my attention. The first of these is going to be the buffs on the M46 and the STA to its heat shells and bringing them up to their historical levels. The M103 being buffed as well to a lesser extent. Why German teams are so bad, and the power creep and what needs to be done. Anyways, let's get into it. So the M46 and the STA 1 and 2 both got buffed last week, and people have been wanting to hear my opinion on it. And frankly, I don't see it as an issue. Many people are going to be like, how is this not an issue to you? How are you not concerned? What about the German teams? What's going to happen now? The reason I say that is because the M46 is a very killable tank. The M56, the Scorpion with its HEATFS rounds, is a very killable tank. You don't see any problems with that. The OU-251 has a very, very killable tank. I don't have a problem with that. The Type 60 SPRG is a very, very killable tank. Do you see the pattern here? And frankly, the fact that the Americans got a historical buff, or to bring that shell up to what it should be, I have no problems with that. And I'm also going to say that they should bring the T-34s, if they're going to insist on the ammunition being the T-14 AP round, they need to bring that up to 286 millimeters of penetration and change it to its APC-BC round that it should be. Also increase the muzzle velocity by like 15 meters per second, but that's relatively minor. I am all for giving guns their historical penetration levels and historical performance. If that's the way it was historically, we need to find a way to get better and get around that. The problem with the IS-6, on the other hand, and I know I'm going to be bringing this back to the IS-6 a lot, because frankly, I see the IS-6 as the biggest problem at Tier 3 right now. Before the IS-6 was in the game, it was fine. But the IS-6 has created more problems for anybody than anything else. And I don't see the M46 buff and the STA buff as a counter to the Germans and a way to just shit on the German armor. I see the M46 buff as a way to help counter IS-6. And the problem that this overall creates, as many people are calling it, is a huge power creep at Tier 4. And this has been going on for a while. And so the addition of the American heavy tanks T-34 and T-29 really initially upset the balance, because all of a sudden, here was a heavy tank that could go head-to-head with King Tiger, and it could win. The difference here between T-34/T-29 and IS-6 is that the King Tiger can fight one of these two vehicles from the front and win. The IS-6, unless you get that lucky shot into the cupolas and detonate the tank all in one go, it is physically impossible for the Tiger II to kill the IS-6 from the front. All the other nations can, and all the other nations have counters. And the only nation in the game that does not have a regular tech tree vehicle that is capable of defeating IS-6 in the front, you guessed it, is the Germans. Even the Japanese can kill it from the front. They have the Type 60. And the Type 60 SPRG, which almost nobody plays, has 380 millimeters of penetration with its HEATFS shells. And it also gets HESH, which will wreck IS-6s. And it gets 2 shots, too. But the fact that the Germans do not have a Tier 4 vehicle that is capable of defeating IS-6 from the front is causing major troubles. Especially when all of the other nations are getting very, very high penetration tanks to deal with this vehicle. Now, some people are going to reference the Jagdtiger, but I've tested the Jagdtiger, and the Jagdtiger even struggles to penetrate the lower plate of an IS-6. And the Sturrer Mill can't either, because the Sturrer Mill is a lower penetration gun. Even with its upgraded ammunition, it's still about 240 millimeters of penetration, which I find all the more baffling because the T-34's 120mm AP round has about the exact same penetration, yet it can get through the IS-6's lower plate a few times out of 10. It's not perfect, but it will get through eventually. The Sturrer Mill is just totally incapable of doing that for some reason, which I don't understand at all. Now I realize I'm going away from my main point, and that is that I don't think that the M46 and the STA-1 and STA-2 getting HEATFS is that big of an issue. I see those as counters to the IS-6 and problems for the IS-6 more than they are problems for the Germans. Can they cause problems for the Germans? Of course, and they are, to some extent. But nothing that the Germans can't handle. It's just another thing that they have to be aware of. Okay, the M46 now has a much higher penetration, so I've got to try something different. And I think another great way that the Germans could potentially counter M46 and STA-1 and STA-2 would be to finally get their Panther 2 back at 6.7. And frankly, I've always been opposed to the Panther 2 going up to 7.0. Always have. It was such a stupid move, and this was put in place by a very vocal minority. I don't think that the Panther 2 was ruined by 7.0. Its capabilities haven't changed, but because it's at 7.0, people don't want to take that risk. And as a result, many people stopped playing the Panther 2 altogether. And I think that was the very first step to hurting the Germans seriously at Tier 4 in terms of their competitiveness. The fact that they no longer have a vehicle that can push forward, take a position, hold it, and secure the flanks for the King Tigers so that they can do what they do best and fight heavy tanks one-on-one. When the heavy tanks are just as good as the King Tigers are, they need all the support they can get. And because the King Tiger simply isn't fast enough to get around the flanks, and the RU-251 doesn't have the durability to hold that position, it would be up to the Panther 2 normally to hold that. And the Panther 2 is not... the Panther 2 was a perfect balance between the light tank and the heavy tank. It had pretty good armor for a medium tank. In a lot of countries, that would be classified as a heavy. If the Panther 2's mobility was poor, I don't think very many people would play it. Also, the Panther 2's armor in general was pretty easily penetrated by large caliber AP shells. The IS-2 could potentially penetrate the frontal armor of a Panther 2. I'm talking about the upper front plate here. The T-29 was more than capable of doing that. The T-34 is now more than capable of doing that. All the mediums that have HEATFS can do it without any issues. It'll stop most 90mm rounds other than the HEATFS shells. And the turret was it was okay. I mean, it's not going to stop very much, but that was one of the things you had to live with as a Panther 2 driver. Also, your traverse was awful. Your turret traverse was god-awful. So it took a long time for you to react to something, because you had to turn the hull, and then you had to lay the gun onto the target, and that took a couple of seconds to aim. So the Panther 2 was a good vehicle, but it wasn't the best vehicle. It was very strong, but it wasn't overpowered. And the fact that people asked for it to be moved up, while it helped a lot of the Allied team, I don't think it was the right solution. And it really hurt the Germans' ability to stay competitive in playing the objectives. Because right now, the only thing keeping them even remotely competitive in that respect is the RU-251. And the RU-251, while a very good vehicle, and very fast, and very maneuverable, simply does not have the durability to get to this objective, hold it, and keep it in their team's hands. The Panther 2 does have that capability, at least until the King Tigers get there. Once the King Tigers get there, then they can carry the battle forwards. And then the Panther 2s can roll out and they can secure the flanks even more, and so on and so on and so on. It was a very, very balanced game at Tier 4 there for a little while, until the Panther 2 was removed from the picture. Now that the Panther 2 is gone, the Germans don't have anything to fill that gap of a decently armored medium tank that can take and hold a position. The Americans have one, the Soviets have one in the T-44. While it's not the greatest, it's still there. The British don't really play that way, honestly. It's funny that their heavy tank is actually more mobile than their mediums. And the Japanese have the American M41 and they have the Type 60. The Japanese play a supporting role, but they can still do some damage. And now that the STAs have HEATFS, it makes them more useful on the front lines, because it means that they can deal with the higher tiered opponents that they get thrown up against. Whereas beforehand, they had no hope. Now they have a little bit of a chance to actually do well on the battlefield. It makes them actually competitive, and the STAs desperately needed something like that. The M46, you could also kind of put in the same boat. I didn't see a lot of M46s before this last patch. Now, of course, because it's got this brand new heat shell, everybody's playing the M46. Everybody's put it back in their lineup. But if we give it a couple of weeks, I wonder how many M46s are actually going to stick around. That's really what I'm curious about. But anyways, and going back to what I was saying earlier about the Germans, I've already stated that the Germans are lacking any sort of vehicle to deal with IS-6. There are a couple of ways that Gaijin could fix this. First of all, move the Jagdpanzer IV down to 6.7 or 7.0, preferably 6.7, and drop the price of the HEATFS shell, because it's the same exact HEATFS shell on the as on the RU-251, but it's almost double as expensive. The Jagdpanzer IV is very fast. It's just as fast as the RU-251. The difference is it just doesn't have a turret. It's got slightly better hull armor, but it's 50 millimeters. It's not going to stop anything. It's very, very fast in reverse. In fact, that's the one thing it's better at in terms of the RU-251. It's faster in reverse, and it would give the Germans ability to counter IS-6 at that same tier. On top of that, bring the Panther 2 back. Bring it back, put it at 6.7. That'll give the Germans a massive buff to their mobility, and I think that'll start to help them out, because it means that now they have something that can go head-to-head with the M46, and those two can fight it out between each other. One other thing that they could do is introduce Treibspiegelgeschoss. For those of you guys who are not aware, the Germans did develop APDS for a lot of their guns throughout the Second World War. It was mostly experimental, and they did test it on pretty much every single one of their guns. They did test them. And we do have Treibspiegelgeschoss penetration docs, and we have been able to find the penetration for the Jagdtiger, and the Jagdtiger was capable of doing some incredible things with that shell. The Jagdtiger is almost as good in terms of raw penetration power as the Chieftain with its APDS. Now, does it need to be that high? I don't know. I mean, I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be historically accurate. But to put this in perspective, the Jagdtiger with that shell could penetrate 242 millimeters of armor at 1 kilometer. And this is sloped back at 60 degrees from the vertical, which means that the Jagdtiger with this APDS shell should be more than capable of penetrating the upper front plate of the IS-6 without any difficulties whatsoever. Now, the question is after that, how much damage it will do, but APDS has always struggled in the damage department ever since Gaijin nerfed it into oblivion. So, the Jagdtiger desperately needs that, and by extension the mouse, because the mouse uses the same gun, just with a slightly different breech. So, if the mouse and the Jagdtiger both got that round, it'd instantly make them more competitive. I know that the 105mm gun on the 10.5cm got that round. Another way you could also help the Germans out is to drop the 10.5 down to 6.7, because the 10.5, frankly, in a lot of ways is a downgrade. Yeah, it's got better mobility than a regular King Tiger, and it's got a bigger gun, but the bigger gun comes with a much, much longer reload. And even with a good crew on it, you're still looking at about 15 to 16 seconds of reload time. On top of that, you can't remove the ammunition from the turret bustle, which still pisses me off to this day. That's a different issue. Give the 7.0 vehicles and the mouse this Treibspiegelgeschoss. You don't have to necessarily give it to the King Tiger, but give it to the vehicles that will use it the best. And at that point, I think the Germans will be competitive. So you drop the BR, the Panzer 4.5, you drop Panther 2 to 6.7, give the Jagdtiger, the mouse, King Tiger 105 its Treibspiegelgeschoss to potentially combat the IS-6, and there you go. The Germans now have the tools to fight IS-6 at that tier, and they also have the tools to fight the opposing mediums at that tier. That's my proposed solution right there. It's pretty simple to do, Gaijin. Make it happen. Okay, so are there anything else we need to talk about? Oh, yes. I do need to clarify something before we go. Changing gears real quick. I've been saying for a while now that the M19 and the M42 Dusters and all the 40mm Bofors armed guns need to get their airburst shells. Well, today I decided to do a little bit of digging after somebody said on Reddit 40mm Bofors airburst shells didn't exist. Now, a lot of people in the comment section are going to scoff and be like, of course they existed. What are you talking about? Well, I did a little bit of digging. Turns out he's right. And I feel a little bit like an idiot at this point because I'm always the one who's saying that we need to do digging before we just take others say for granted, but I did, and I was wrong. What needs to happen now in terms of the M19, all the M42 Dusters, the Crusader Mark 1, SPAA with the 40mm. Yeah, it's not looking so good for them all of a sudden because their SPAA capability is pretty fucking bad. Also, I'm going to be doing a Q&A here with Dennis again pretty soon. I've sent him some questions. I think I might send him some more here if I can get any more. Comment section below. Just label it like Dennis Q&A. I got a couple of questions from the last episode, and I'll also send those off to him. Hopefully, we can do this thing within the next 6 months. So, when we talk about this next time, I'm going to address a few things to him, and I'm going to be a little bit harder on him this time. So, Dennis, if you end up watching this video, be prepared, because I'm going to be a little bit harder on you and Gaijin, because you guys were doing good at the start of the year, and you guys have majorly fucked up in the last few months. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like. If you guys didn't enjoy the video, well, hit that dislike button. It's there for a reason. And leave your opinions down in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you guys think that there are better solutions to helping the Germans out, bringing them back up, not necessarily to where they were, because there's no changing that now, but bringing them to a point where they are competitive again, and where they are winning games to a good level? This has been Many Miles Away. Keep your tracks checked, keep your binos in place, keep it right on the tube, and I will see you guys on the next one.